I stood in my car for a long minute, staring at the porch light that glowed faintly through the trees. My hands tightened on the steering, well, even though the engine had been off for 5 minutes. Nathan had texted me an hour ago. Mom's here. She'll only stay a couple of days. A couple of days, it felt like a lifetime. Joanne had a way of making every room colder the moment she stepped into it. For 5 years, I had tried to be patient, to keep the peace, to be the good daughter-in-law who smiled even when insulted. But tonight, I felt my chest tighten at the thought of her voice echoing through my home. I could already hear the subtle digs, the sharp looks, the way she scanned Caleb as if searching for proof he wasn't Nathan's son. I hated that look most of all. Nathan always told me to let it go. She's just set in her ways, Madison. She doesn't mean half of what she says. Maybe he was right, but what about the other half? The half where she once suggested we do a DNA test just to be sure. The half where she whispered to neighbors that Caleb's dark hair and sharp blue eyes didn't come from Nathan's side of the family. She never said it to my face, but she didn't have to. I could hear her loud and clear. I took a deep breath, gripping my bag. I didn't want Caleb to see me tense up before I even stepped inside. He loved his grandmother, even if she rarely showed him kindness. He was only 5. He shouldn't have to carry the weight of adult grudges. I whispered to myself, "It's just 2 days. You can handle 2 days." Walking up the path, I remembered the first time I had met Joanne. She had barely shaken my hand, her eyes sliding immediately to the toddler clinging to my leg. "And this is," she'd asked, her tone clipped, as if Caleb were some stranger's child I had dragged in off the street. That moment had set the tone for every meeting afterward. Inside, I could hear voices, Nathan's warm baritone and Joanne's sharp, cutting replies. I paused at the door, suddenly tempted to turn around, to drive somewhere, anywhere but home. That wasn't me, though. I had fought too hard to build a life for Caleb and me to run from a woman who thrived on intimidation. My hand lingered on the doorknob, cold against my palm. I thought of Caleb's drawings taped proudly to the fridge, of the little wooden truck Nathan had built with him last weekend, of the life we had been piecing together with patience and love. I wouldn't let anyone, not even Joanne, make me feel like an outsider in my own home. I stepped inside. The smell of roasted chicken and Joanne's perfume, a heavy floral scent that somehow always smelled like disapproval, hit me at once. Nathan glanced up from the kitchen table, smiling, relief flashing across his face. Joanne barely looked at me, her lips pressing into that familiar thin line. "Madison," she said flatly, as if my name were something bitter on her tongue. I forced a smile and hung up my coat. Tonight would be long, and I had no idea just how long. There's a moment, right before sleep, when memories creep in uninvited. They don't ask if you want them. They just flood your mind, sharp and vivid. That night, as Joanne's cold stare still lingered in my head, the past came rushing back. I hadn't always lived in Eugene. Years ago, I was a girl with big plans and no interest in romance. My parents' marriage had taught me early what chaos love could bring. My father's drinking, the late-night arguments, the slamming doors, all of it left a scar. I focused on school, on building a life that would never rely on anyone else. 2 degrees by 24, a stable job with an international firm, and dreams of working abroad. That was my plan until I met him. Blake Reed, tall, charming, with the kind of confidence that filled a room. He wasn't just attractive, he was attentive, the way men in books are, listening as if every word I said mattered. We met at a small coffee shop downtown, where I sat buried in contracts, and he struck up a conversation about the book I was reading. By the end of the night, I was laughing more than I had in years. For months, he courted me like something out of an old movie. Dinners, flowers, late-night phone calls that stretched into dawn. He never let me pay for a thing, and I, blinded by the warmth he brought into my lonely little apartment, didn't question why we never celebrated holidays together, why he never introduced me to his family, why he seemed to vanish every weekend. When I found out I was pregnant, I thought it was a miracle, something good, something permanent. I told him one chilly November evening, my hands trembling as I held the little gift box with the positive test inside. I had imagined tears of joy, a hug, maybe even a proposal. Instead, he went pale. His smile cracked like thin ice. "You can't have this baby," he said flatly, pushing the box back into my hands. "You don't understand. This can't happen." I didn't understand. I begged him to explain. That's when he admitted it. He was married. Had been for years. A wife named Chloe. A life that didn't include me. I remember standing there in shock, my ears ringing. He offered me money, as if that would fix it. As if Caleb, still just a whisper of life inside me, was some mistake to be erased. I walked away that night and never looked back. At least I thought I hadn't. I kept the baby, even when my own father sneered and neighbors whispered. I promised myself I would never speak Blake's name again. Never let that shame define me. Then Nathan came into my life. Gentle, steady Nathan, who fixed cars by day and played guitar to calm Caleb at night. He didn't care about my past. He loved Caleb from day one, holding him as if he'd always been his. For the first time, I felt safe, like I'd built something no one could touch. But secrets have a way of resurfacing, and Joanne's voice tonight, so sharp, so certain about Caleb's bloodline, made me wonder if maybe she'd always known. And if she knew, who else did? I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the soft hum of Nathan's breathing. My heart pounded with an old, familiar fear, the kind I thought I'd buried with my past. I closed my eyes, whispering to myself, "No one will take my child from me. Not now, not ever." The months after Blake walked out of my life were some of the hardest I had ever known. I moved back into my father's house because I couldn't afford rent on my own. He had been a mean drunk for as long as I could remember, and pregnancy didn't soften him one bit. If anything, it gave him fresh ammunition. Another mouth to feed, huh? Couldn't keep your legs closed. His words were sharp and deliberate, meant to cut deep, and they did. I worked from home, doing translation jobs, and any contract work I could find, but money was always tight. The neighbors whispered every time I stepped outside, their judgment heavy on my shoulders. I learned to keep my head down, to focus on the baby growing inside me, and nothing else. When Caleb was born on a snowy New Year's Eve, I promised him he would never feel unwanted, not even for a second. He was mine, my miracle. For a while, it was just the two of us against the world. I nursed him while reading through legal documents at midnight, rocked him to sleep before sending emails to clients, and smiled through exhaustion because giving up wasn't an option. But even the strongest walls crack under pressure, and mine did the day my father threw a beer bottle against the kitchen wall, inches from where I held Caleb. That night, I packed our things and left. Finding a place wasn't easy, but life has a strange way of opening doors when you're desperate enough to walk through them. I met Nathan a few weeks later at a community auto shop. My car's transmission had given out, and I barely had the money for repairs. Nathan had grease on his hands, a kind smile, and eyes that didn't judge. He knelt next to Caleb's car seat, made a silly face, and for the first time in days, my son laughed. We talked while he worked, nothing serious at first, just about cars, the weather, how expensive diapers were. But something about him felt steady. He didn't flirt, didn't try to impress me with big gestures. He just showed up. Every time I needed something, advice about my car, help carrying groceries, or even just someone to talk to, Nathan was there. Slowly, a friendship formed, then something warmer. When he first asked me out, I hesitated. My life was messy, and I wasn't sure anyone would willingly step into it. But Nathan did without hesitation. He accepted Caleb as his own, reading bedtime stories and teaching him how to build little wooden trucks in the garage. There was no judgment in his eyes, only patience. After a year of dating, he proposed on a quiet evening at the park. Caleb perched on his shoulders, clapping like he understood exactly what was happening. We married in the spring and moved into Nathan's small but cozy house near the edge of Eugene. For the first time in a long time, I felt safe, maybe even happy. But happiness can make you forget how fragile life really is. Joanne never liked me. She made that clear at our first family dinner, and she didn't hide her contempt as the years passed. I tried to ignore it, telling myself that people like her eventually came around. I was wrong. Looking back now, I should have seen it coming. The way she looked at Caleb, the questions she asked, the subtle digs about his hair and eyes. But I wanted peace so badly, I convinced myself it didn't matter. I had Nathan, I had Caleb, and I had a home. What could possibly go wrong? Life with Nathan was good most days. He was kind, patient, and steady, and he loved Caleb as if he had been there from day one. But Joanne's shadow hung over our marriage like a storm cloud that never moved. She came around only when she wanted something, never for a friendly visit, never just to see her grandchildren without a reason. And when she did show up, she made sure I felt small in my own home. It wasn't just me. Joanne treated Nathan differently too, always with a subtle disappointment, as if her younger son hadn't lived up to what she believed he should be. In her eyes, Blake, the golden child, could do no wrong. Blake had gone off to college, married Chloe, the daughter of an influential businessman, and landed a job managing one of her father's companies. They lived in a big house outside Portland, drove new cars, and vacationed in Europe every summer. Joanne practically worshipped them. At every family gathering, rare as they were, she compared Nathan to his older brother, never missing an opportunity to point out how different their lives were. Blake just bought a new place, 3-car garage and all. And Nathan, how's that little shop of yours doing? Still busy with old trucks. The way she said old trucks always dripped with judgment, as if honest work meant nothing unless it came with a suit and tie. Chloe, though, she was different. Sweet, polite, and almost painfully optimistic. She tried to bridge the gap between Joanne and me, bringing homemade pies to family dinners and asking about Caleb like she genuinely cared. But even her kindness had a thread of sadness running through it. I later learned she and Blake had been trying for a baby for years, with no luck. That struggle, though heartbreaking, only deepened Joanne's obsession with having another grandchild, her grandchild. I saw the way Joanne's eyes lingered on Caleb whenever she visited. It wasn't the warm look of a proud grandmother. It was calculating, as if she were measuring something, looking for proof of what she had suspected all along, that Caleb didn't belong to Nathan. She never said it directly, but I could feel it in every offhand comment, every glance that lasted a beat too long. One afternoon, during a family barbecue, I overheard her talking to a neighbor. He's a sweet boy, sure, but doesn't he look more like Blake than Nathan? Those eyes, that hair. Makes you wonder, doesn't it? My stomach dropped. She was planting seeds, whispering poison where I couldn't even defend myself. Nathan brushed it off when I told him later. She's just being mom. She doesn't mean anything by it. But deep down, I saw the flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. That tiny shadow of doubt was enough to make me furious, not at him, but at her. Joanne thrived on control, on dividing people just enough so she could steer things her way. And lately, she had been visiting more often, her questions sharper, her interest in Caleb deeper. Blake and Chloe had visited once since moving back from Portland. Blake barely acknowledged me, too busy talking to Joanne in hushed tones. Chloe smiled politely but seemed distracted. I thought nothing of it at the time. Why would I? Families talk, siblings catch up. But looking back, I realized there was something else in their conversation, a secret, heavy and deliberate, that I wasn't meant to hear. I brushed it off then, but a nagging feeling lingered. Something was shifting in the family dynamic, something I couldn't quite name yet. I only knew one thing for certain. Joanne had an agenda, and whatever it was, it involved Caleb. That night, I came home later than usual. Caleb was spending the evening at my mom's house, so it was just supposed to be Nathan, Joanne, and me. I sat in the car for a full minute, gathering my strength. Something about the way Joanne had smiled earlier, tight, secretive, made my stomach knot. When I finally stepped inside, I froze. Their voices floated down the hallway from the living room, low but urgent. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but my name stopped me cold. Madison doesn't deserve that boy, Nathan. You know it as well as I do, Joanne said, her tone sharp and certain. I frowned, my heart thudding. Nathan sighed. Mom, don't start. Caleb is my son. End of story. Your son. Joanne scoffed. Open your eyes. You think I can't see it? He's got Blake's eyes, Blake's hair. I knew the moment I saw him. And I know why she rushed you into marriage. She trapped you with another man's child. My breath caught in my throat. No one knew about Blake. No one. Nathan's voice rose. Enough. Even if that were true, and it's not, it doesn't change how I feel about him. He's my family. But Joanne wasn't done. And what about Blake? He and Chloe can't have children, Nathan. Do you know what that does to them? What it's doing to this family? That boy, your boy, should be with his real father. With Blake and Chloe, he'd have everything: money, opportunity, a stable home. Don't you see? It's the right thing to do. My whole body went numb. She wasn't just talking about Caleb. She was plotting to take him from me. Nathan's voice shook. You've lost your mind. You expect me to just hand over my son because you think you see a resemblance? Because Blake's wife can't get pregnant? That's insane. Not insane. Strategic. Joanne's voice turned cold, calculated. All it takes is proving Madison's unfit. Show she's unstable, too busy with work, neglectful. I already have people who'd be willing to sign statements. And once Blake files for paternity testing, I staggered back a step, clutching the wall to steady myself. The world tilted. She had it all planned. False accusations, court filings, tearing my family apart, all because she worshipped one son and dismissed the other. Nathan's chair scraped loudly. If you do this, if you even think about doing this, we're done, Mom. You hear me? Done. Don't be dramatic. You'll thank me when it's over, she snapped, her words dripping with certainty. In that moment, I realized two things. First, Joanne had never hated me simply for who I was. She hated me because she believed Caleb wasn't Nathan's. And second, my past, the one I had buried so deep, was now a weapon in her hands. I stood frozen in the hallway, shaking. For years, I had carried the secret of Blake's betrayal like a stone in my chest, thinking I'd buried it forever. But Joanne had dug it up and twisted it into something monstrous. I didn't even notice the tears until they hit my lips. I had promised Caleb the day he was born that no one would ever take him from me, and I intended to keep that promise. Wiping my face, I straightened my shoulders. I couldn't stay silent. Not tonight. Not ever again. I don't remember deciding to move. 1 second, I was frozen in the hallway, my back pressed to the wall. The next, my feet carried me into the living room. Joanne sat upright on the couch, arms crossed, her expression sharp as a knife. Nathan stood near the window, his hands clenched at his sides. They both looked up when I walked in. Madison, Nathan said quietly, surprise flickering across his face. I stared straight at Joanne. Get out. Her eyebrows shot up, but her tone was smug. Excuse me. You heard me. Get out of my house. Nathan stepped toward me. Mads, no, I said, my voice shaking but clear. I heard every word, every disgusting, hateful thing. You want to take my son? You think I'm unfit? That Caleb belongs with Blake and Chloe, like he's some prize you can just move around on a board? Not in this lifetime. Joanne's eyes narrowed, her mouth twisting into that familiar look of disdain. You should be thanking me. That boy deserves a proper life. I cut her off, my anger boiling over. He has a proper life. He has a father who loves him, a mother who works every day to give him everything she can, and a home where he's safe. The only thing he doesn't need is you. For the first time, Joanne faltered. It was only for a second, but I saw it, the flicker of shock that I dared to stand up to her. Nathan moved to my side, resting a hand on my shoulder. "Mom, you need to leave. Tonight." Her face twisted. "Nathan, don't do this. I am your mother." "And I am Caleb's father," he said firmly. "This is my family. If you can't respect my wife and my son, then you're not welcome here." The silence that followed was thick, broken only by Joanne's sharp intake of breath. She stood abruptly, her chair scraping the hardwood. "You'll regret this," she spat, stepping toward the door. "Both of you. Don't come crawling back when it all falls apart." When she reached the entryway, she turned dramatically, as if expecting one of us to stop her. Neither of us moved. Her eyes darted between us, and for a fleeting moment, I thought I saw something. Fear, maybe? Or disbelief that her control over Nathan had slipped. Then she slammed the door and was gone. I hadn't realized I was trembling until Nathan wrapped his arms around me. "Hey, it's over. She's gone." I buried my face in his chest, tears finally breaking free. "She's not going to stop, Nathan. She's going to go after Caleb. She's going to dig up everything I tried to leave behind." He tipped my chin up, forcing me to meet his eyes. "Then we'll fight. Together. I don't care what she thinks she knows. Caleb is ours, and I'm not letting anyone take him away from you, from us." For the first time that night, I believed him. I felt his strength wrapping around me, not just physically, but in the way his voice steadied my heartbeat. We had faced Joanne's cruelty before, but tonight was different. Tonight he had chosen, and he chose us. I closed my eyes, whispering, "Thank you." Nathan kissed my forehead and held me tighter. "We're going to be okay, Madison. I promise." But deep down, I knew Joanne wasn't done. People like her didn't just walk away. And if she had already gone this far, what would stop her from going further? The house was quiet after Joanne left, but it wasn't the kind of quiet that soothes you. It was heavy, like the air itself was holding its breath. Nathan hadn't moved from my side. His hand stayed firm on my shoulder, grounding me while my chest rose and fell in uneven bursts. "I'm sorry," I whispered, the words slipping out before I could stop them. Nathan frowned. "Why are you apologizing?" "Because she's right about one thing. Caleb isn't your blood." The confession caught in my throat like glass. "I should have told you from the beginning, but I was terrified. I thought you'd walk away like Blake did." Nathan turned me to face him fully, his expression calm but resolute. "Madison, listen to me. I don't care whose blood runs in his veins. That boy is my son. He always has been. He calls me Dad, and I will never let anyone take him from us. You hear me?" My eyes stung as I nodded. "But Joanne is done," he said sharply, surprising even himself with the conviction in his voice. "Tonight made me see things I should have seen years ago. She's not trying to help anyone. She's trying to control us, just like she's always controlled Blake. I'm done letting her have power over our lives." He stepped back and ran a hand through his hair, pacing once before stopping at the window. "Tomorrow, I'm calling the attorney who helped with our mortgage papers. We're going to start the adoption process. Caleb is legally going to be my son. No questions, no loopholes. If Joanne or Blake want to try something, let them. We'll be ready." I blinked at him. "Nathan, you'd really do that? You'd go through all of that just to—" "Not just to," he interrupted softly, coming back to me and holding my hands. "Because I love him. Because I love you. This is our family, Madison. I should have stood up for you sooner, but I'm standing up now. The weight I'd carried for years, the secret of Caleb's birth, the fear that it could one day rip my life apart, suddenly felt lighter. My knees gave out, and Nathan caught me as I leaned into him. I let the tears come, not from fear this time, but from relief. "You have no idea what this means to me," I murmured against his chest. He smiled faintly. "I think I do." We sat on the couch, his arm around me, the clock ticking softly in the background. For the first time since overhearing Joanne's words, I could breathe without feeling like my ribs were about to snap. Later that night, after Nathan fell asleep, I checked on Caleb in his little bed at my mom's house via the baby monitor we kept for overnight visits. He was sprawled out, one arm over his stuffed bear, the peaceful innocence of sleep softening his tiny features. My son. Our son. I whispered to the screen. No one's ever taken you away from me, ever. The storm Joanne had started wasn't over. I knew that. But tonight, Nathan had chosen his side, our side, and it felt like the first crack of sunlight after a long, bitter winter. For the first time, I believed we might really be okay. 2 days later, I heard a soft knock on our front door. It wasn't the sharp, impatient knock Joanne always used. This one was hesitant, almost apologetic. When I opened the door, Chloe stood there, clutching a small tin of cookies like a peace offering. "Hi, Madison," she said quietly. "Do you have a minute?" I hesitated. Chloe had always been polite, but distant, more of a guest in Joanne's world than an ally in mine. Still, something in her expression told me this wasn't a social visit. "Of course," I said, stepping aside. "Come in." She sat at our kitchen table, hands twisting in her lap. For a long moment, she didn't speak, just stared at the tin of cookies. Then she exhaled sharply. "I know about Joanne's plan about Caleb." My stomach clenched. "You know." Chloe nodded, her eyes glistening. "I overheard part of it last week. At first, I didn't understand, but after what happened the other night, Joanne called me, furious you'd kicked her out. I put the pieces together." She looked up, tears finally slipping free. "Madison, I am so sorry. I had no idea she would go that far." I sank into the chair opposite her, stunned. "You're not part of it." Her head shook fiercely. "God, no. I would never take someone else's child. I can't have kids, and yeah, that's hard. But Caleb isn't mine, and he never should be. Joanne's obsession, it's not about what's best for him. It's about control." Something in my chest loosened. For years, I braced myself to see Chloe as an enemy simply because she was married to Blake, the man who had abandoned me. But sitting here now, I saw someone else entirely, a woman carrying her own pain, her own battle scars. "I'm sorry too," I whispered, "for assuming you wanted what Joanne wanted." Chloe gave a sad smile. "I get it. I know what Blake did. He told me before we married. Well, part of it. He left out how cruel he'd been. I guess I wanted to believe people change, but lately," she trailed off, shaking her head. "Let's just say my marriage isn't what I thought it would be." The silence stretched, not awkward, but heavy with truth. For the first time, I felt no anger toward her, only a quiet understanding. She reached across the table, resting her hand over mine. "If Joanne tries anything, I'll stand with you. I'll tell the truth. Caleb belongs with you and Nathan." The kindness in her eyes almost undid me. "Thank you, Chloe. That means more than you know." She smiled faintly and pushed the tin of cookies toward me. "These are chocolate chip. Caleb likes them, right?" I laughed softly, a sound I hadn't expected to hear from myself so soon. "Yeah, he'll love them." When she left, the house felt warmer, somehow lighter. It hit me then that healing doesn't always come from winning battles. It sometimes comes from unexpected places, like two women who once stood on opposite sides, finding common ground. That night, I told Nathan about Chloe's visit. He listened quietly, then wrapped his arms around me. "See, we're not alone in this." For the first time since overhearing Joanne's plan, I believed it. We had allies, we had truth, and most importantly, we had each other. A week later, Nathan suggested we take a drive out to the edge of town, to the little piece of land we'd been slowly turning into a small vineyard. It was quiet out there, just the sound of wind in the trees and the soft hum of bees. Caleb loved it, running through the rows of young vines like it was his personal playground. That day, we brought a small sapling with us. Nathan carried it on his shoulder, while Caleb proudly clutched a little plastic spade. "We're planting this one for us," Nathan said, smiling as he knelt down beside me. A new start. Caleb dug with all the determination of a 5-year-old, dirt flying everywhere as he hummed a tune from one of his cartoons. I knelt next to him, gently scooping soil into the hole he'd made. Nathan placed the sapling in, steady and straight, and together we covered its roots. "There," I said softly, brushing the dirt from my hands. "Strong roots, right, Caleb?" He nodded, eyes bright. "Like our family." The simplicity of his words nearly undid me. After everything, the secrets, the fear, the betrayal, this little boy still saw nothing but love and safety when he looked at us. Nathan put an arm around my shoulders, pulling me close. "That's exactly right, buddy. Strong roots." As we worked, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Chloe. "Joanne won't be bothering you for a while. She's processing things." I told her I won't support any plan to take Caleb. "Thought you should know." I read it twice, relief washing over me. Joanne hadn't apologized. People like her rarely did. But at least she'd been stopped, her grip on our lives broken. For the first time in years, I felt like I could exhale without waiting for the next blow to land. Later, we sat on the porch of the small cabin Nathan had been building by hand, sipping lemonade as Caleb drew pictures of the new tree in his sketchpad. "Think it'll grow tall?" he asked, holding up his drawing. "Taller than you," Nathan said, ruffling his hair, "and you're going to be pretty tall." I smiled, watching them together. This was what I had fought so hard for. Not perfection, not luxury, just peace, just the kind of love that didn't question its own worth. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills, Nathan took my hand. "When all this started, I thought we might break," he admitted. "But we didn't. We're stronger now. You, me, Caleb, we're solid." I leaned against him, the warmth of his shoulder grounding me. "We are," I agreed, "and no one's ever going to change that." The tree we planted swayed gently in the breeze, its fragile branches catching the light. It would take years to grow strong enough to bear fruit, but that was okay. So would we. That night, after Caleb had fallen asleep in the car on the way home, Nathan carried him to bed while I lingered on the porch, looking out at the dark sky. The stars over Eugene were bright, scattered like tiny lanterns, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I didn't feel small underneath them. I felt grounded. I thought about the journey that had brought me here. From the girl who had fallen for Blake's charm and been left standing alone, holding a positive pregnancy test and a broken heart, to the woman who had chosen to keep her child, no matter the cost. For so long, I had carried shame like it was stitched into my skin. Shame for falling for the wrong man, for raising a child alone, for building walls around myself so high no one could climb them. But Nathan had climbed them. He hadn't just climbed them. He had taken my hand and helped me step over them, brick by brick, until one day I realized I wasn't trapped anymore. And Caleb, he had given me a reason to keep going even when I thought I had nothing left. He was my light when the world felt dark. Joanne's cruelty had cut deep, but in the end it revealed something I'd almost forgotten. Family isn't about DNA or the stories people tell behind closed doors, or even about who the world thinks you should be with. Family is about who stays when things get hard, who stands beside you when the storm comes. Nathan had chosen me, and Caleb without hesitation. Chloe, unexpectedly, had chosen truth over blood loyalty. And even in his innocence, Caleb had chosen love, unquestioning, unconditional love that didn't care about the past. I stepped back inside and watched Nathan tuck Caleb in, his hand resting gently on our son's back. Caleb murmured something in his sleep, his tiny fist gripping Nathan's shirt, like even in his dreams he needed to know we weren't going anywhere. When Nathan came back to the doorway, I whispered, "You saved us." He shook his head. "No, Madison. We saved each other." I smiled, tears pricking my eyes, and reached for his hand. The warmth of his fingers wrapping around mine told me everything I needed to know. We were safe, we were whole, and we were finally free. Standing there, I thought of the tree we'd planted earlier. It would grow, slow and steady, its roots deepening over the years. One day, Caleb would sit under its shade, maybe with kids of his own, and know that it had all started with love and a choice to protect what mattered most. If there's one thing life has taught me, it's this. Sometimes the family you fight hardest to keep isn't the one you're born into, but the one you choose day after day. And sometimes the deepest healing doesn't come from winning a battle, but from knowing you're no longer fighting alone. I kissed Nathan softly, feeling the quiet hum of our home around us, and whispered to myself, "We're home now, all of us."